You are listening to Close Call Career Talk, and this is a conversation where we talk everything about how to get in and get ahead in the world of VC. Today's guest is super special, someone that I admire and look up to. She's very, very kind, very candid. Very happy to welcome you to the show, Vanessa. How are you doing today?
Very good, very good. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
And I'm looking forward to hearing the stories and the challenges and all of that. So to kick this off, I'd love to start with your introduction. So tell us a bit about you as a person and the fun.
I could go on forever, but I'll try and keep it brief. So, my name's Vanessa, founding partner at NoBaCapital. I guess most importantly, I'm a mum of
Hmm.
five. I have a beautiful blended family, and I'm someone who deeply cares. So everything that kind of I have always done throughout my whole life has always been surrounded by people, around people. I come from a very big Spanish family, so people are like the core of everything we do. And I think having been able to bring that into what we do at NoBa is super special because it feels like you're never really working, even though you're obviously working every day of your life. And I guess my background is not from the finance world.
Hmm.
I'm a people operator. I've always worked around people and supported in the people space, I guess, with over 20 years of experience
Wow.
now. My view is that the best investors are operators because they can see things before they're happening. They can really guide and support founders on that journey. So yeah, NoBa is a thematic investor focused on future work. Future work is super, super broad. And I guess because we dig so deep, that is kind of ingrained into lots of different verticals of what we do. But ultimately, we back digital tech solutions focused on how people learn, how people grow, how people collaborate and build better lives through work. And that's our focus. We have an investment club that supports us through those like pre-seed early stage deals. Our club is super diverse, lots of diverse investors there that aren't just writing checks, but also operating and supporting founders to get to that next stage. Very collaborative community that we've built. And then we have the fund that helps with the seed and Series A rounds in a similar way, but obviously writing those bigger tickets.
Oh, this is so cool. I rarely hear a fund have something called an investment club, which really supports, which is hands on, which supports founders in their most crucial parts of the journey or building a company. Very interesting. And what's intriguing and interesting to me is you had a very, very different career before. So, what drew you to the world of VC and what kept you in?
I guess what drew me was kind of that excitement of building. I guess
Mm-hmm.
coming from that operator background, I've always had lots of different ideas in my head. I've always wanted to build lots of businesses, but kind of, I don't think that was ever the path for me to do on my own.
Mm-hmm.
But it was definitely, I didn't think I'd end up in venture. I think what drew me was the fascination of being able to combine the people passion to the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
investing. And I guess when we decided to build NoBa, it was actually how do we invest in things that support people to have a better working life, but also
Mm.
obviously gives return to our investors, but ultimately is touching the lives of those people that are using the
Yeah.
solutions.
Yeah.
And I think for us, it was like a no-brainer of actually how can we combine that with our operational skills and
Mm-hmm.
build an ecosystem that actually helps founders enjoy the journey because
Mm-hmm.
it can be so lonely and it's really challenging. Venture
Yeah.
isn't for everyone.
Yeah.
Founding a business isn't easy. And so how do
Yeah.
you support on that journey? And I think I wanted to create that kind of access, the awareness, and a lot of what NOBA does is we do back underserved, underrepresented founders
Mm-hmm.
because those founders are building and solving for people they resonate with,
Yeah.
their communities. And so for us, it's actually, they've done the hard job. They've brought that amazing business idea, proposition to the table. How do we now help them move from like a project to a business and grow that? And usually that takes having like a little army around you to support that.
And I completely echo and agree with your perspective that being an operator, having some sort of startup scale up experience does bring a very different perspective when you're sitting on the other side of the table, especially when it comes to, oh my God, this is going this way and this is not going to end well. How can we sort of prevent that? How can we preempt those challenges way ahead before it actually happens in the founder's journey? Very cool. Because you're a people person and you spoke about people, I would love to get your thoughts on building a team. And let's say you're building NoBa and you are hiring your first associate analyst. What are you actually looking for in that candidate?
It's interesting because we've just had a huge growth of our team, and kind of, we're actually in the midst of like really growing the team. And I think it's also really important as the person hiring to understand what phase you're at your business, what you're looking for, and actually what are the qualities that you need in your team in that moment in time. Because I can look for qualities in a person that have to be there because they have to align with the values, but also what does your business need today? And who can you kind of bring on board to complement what you have? I guess for junior VC roles like associates and analysts, people think of like the financial modeling bit, the evaluating deals, the market analysis, and all that matters, don't get me wrong, but I think it's not the only thing. It's that creativity part. It's venture is superhuman, and it's the behavioral part. It's kind of, it's a relationship business. Like a lot of what you do isn't just sitting there looking at spreadsheets. A lot of it is actually outward facing with founders, with investors, in the ecosystem. And so for me, it's more about like judgment, curiosity, and kind of the ability to earn the trust, not only within the business, but also externally. Venture, everyone thinks is super sexy, but it's super hard. And I think some of the core skills that I personally look for is kind of curiosity. I love people that are just curious, even if sometimes it's like you're going down a rabbit hole. It's not now, but has that thing of actually, I'm not just doing a task, I'm doing it and I'm going to think about it, because the thinking will help you get further later. It's about like following those threads, asking better questions, kind of going deeper into the things that you're looking for. And I think it's also being able to identify kind of I guess a really interesting story with us was we had a team a few years back, and back then when we started Future of Work, and I'm very big at admitting how I always see things is I saw the solutions as things that resonated with me in my life, like desk work, like well-being, things like that. And so we had an analyst in our team who bought a business to us, and it's in the fitness space. And I was like, how's that future of work? Come on, guys. But actually, one of the things we said to the team is, if you really believe in something, you need to push it and make sure that we all kind of understand what the impact is going to come with this business. And so really, really pushed it. And thankfully they did in our portfolio. Now, one of our best performing businesses in the portfolio. But it also gave me so much learning as kind of the partner of the business, being like, actually, I do need to open up my mind. There are workers in every industry, and the way we work is, and so it's finding people who aren't scared to push, even to the partners of the business, because that's where change really happens, and that's where you allow everyone to grow. So I guess that curiosity for me is super important. Pair that up with kind of pace and follow up. It's a very fast moving business. We can't wait for tomorrow. Sometimes that you need to be doing today, and sometimes it's like, actually focus on the things that are going to make real impact, and the nice to haves, put them on the side. So that's kind of like the urgency and accuracy is super important. And then finally, I'd say low ego and high ownership. You don't realize how much of a difference you make on founders' lives when you back their businesses. So sometimes you have to like kind of really see that through, and kind of not see that ego part of whatever that looks like for the individual, and kind of just rolling up your sleeves, doing the unglamorous work, not always doing what your job spec says, because that's kind of the joys of it.
Absolutely. I think you mentioned a few things that are so interesting and important when it comes to the speed. So being curious also sort of brings in a little bit of speed of execution. How can I research, use AI, use some experts in the network, and sort of just being out there and being proactive, and judgment.
Then how you bring that back as well, because I always say to my team, if you find a new tool that's like a game changer for you, please share it with us, because it's kind of like it's bringing back the findings.
Absolutely. And I'm so happy you said this, because lots of times what happens in VC funds is There's someone, let's say someone's getting deeper and deeper into fintech, for example. They're amassing so much knowledge, but the rest of the team doesn't know anything about that. And then let's say another team member is in an event somewhere, and they get pitched by a founder in fintech, and they think, it's not important or interesting for me. But then the other analyst would have picked up on that
Yeah.
particular signal. So it's so important to sort of bring, oh, this is the new thing, this is a new tool. We should all be, on top of a game. Very important. And you mentioned something very interesting, judgment. So, Vanessa, do you think judgment is something that a person can train as they sort of in the ecosystem, as they hear, as they go through deals? Or is it something they need to bring some of it, and then with the low ego part, they sort of change their judgment based on the data points that they get? How do you see that evolving, even with your career? From operator to an investor, how did your judgment change or evolve over time?
Yeah, for me, it's changed when I've become a lot more self-aware of myself and how I am. And I think you always have an initial judgment, and that evolves over time depending on what you're exposed to. And I think being curious and open to being aware of what's happening,
Yeah.
even if you don't have the answers, is super, super important in this. And we can't evolve and grow as people or as
Yeah.
professionals if we don't kind of sit back and be like, oh, this is sitting here right now. I'm not sure what I want to do with it. I'll put it to the side for now, because I think in order for teams to work, for businesses to work, things have to align. And that's why when I look to build a team, I look for people to complement each other. And sometimes people don't people stay for a moment in time because that's the moment in time that they or the business need you for. So that judgment, I think, is something that evolves as you become more self-aware and about the things that you're carrying with you, and your passion for that space as well.
Now that you're growing your team, I'm sure you're doing tons of interviews, you're meeting tons of candidates. What are a few things that separate the good ones from the best ideal candidates, the ones that stand out from the ones that are like, yeah, they're good enough, but then they're not just there yet. So any few tips or your observations on that?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's the good exceptional candidates that I see are the ones that take initiative, and the okay candidates wait. So for example, if you think of an initial interview or initial chat, the ones that follow up and kind of reinforce the why, I love that, because for me, it's kind of like, if you're passionate about the space that we're working in, and you really are eager to get into like working in this space, you just want to keep learning. And the ones that follow up and do ask kind of like, why was it a no? I always try and give the responses to those candidates. Hopefully this doesn't backfire on me now and everyone starts asking, because we don't always have all the time, but we do have a business in the portfolio that can support with that, so I can always use that. But I guess it's the kind of wait to be told what to do. They kind of bring things to the table, and once hired and in the team, they bring deals, they bring insights, frameworks. They just will ultimately start asking much better questions and are always a step ahead. I guess it's those candidates that don't just think about the doing, but think about the outcome and think
Yeah.
about the longer term. It's not like I do this task and it's done, tick. It's I do this task, but how's it going to impact my work later? I guess it's also those candidates that connect the dots that are exceptional, the ones that can see things, like the example of that business that I
Yeah.
told you that
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
under. They can see that actually the younger generations are working out differently now, and they can foresee something that is not recognised yet, potentially in the market. And then I guess those candidates that can build trust quickly, not just trust within the organisation, but externally, like
Yeah.
founders, love to be able to feel they have a relationship with their investors, and it really does like elevate you, but also
Yes.
elevate the firm that you work for, because people matter and those relationships matter.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I usually stick to three. I could go on, but I always
No,
try and
these
stick
are
to
these are
three
great.
points.
Great points. And it makes sense, right? Someone who's reactive, who only responds to, okay, this is the next round, versus someone who said, oh, based on the first call, I was in a demo day, I think this could be a fantastic, you know, starter for you to look at, or even, oh, this is an interesting article. Maybe I thought I would, that really sets them apart during an interview process.
Yeah. Yeah, and people that have like kind of done the work, and they get what you do and they're there because they really believe in what you do and can talk through that. Because I get getting into VC is super, super hard, but it's kind of like if you want to get in, you need to also try and find those organizations that you're excited about and you want to start that journey with.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you touched on the right point just for a segue into the next question, which is getting into VC is hard, but so is staying in and going up the ladder, especially as a diverse candidate. A couple of years ago, lots of female VCs sort of quit their jobs because they couldn't get to the partnership, or they started their own fund only because they wanted to have that autonomy of decisions. They wanted to, write better checks. They wanted to push the candidates and startups they sort of bring to the table. And how are you seeing this? And for any aspiring female a VC who wants to become a partner, a GP, or anyone that wants to start a micro VC fund themselves, or if you are doing this again, what would you do differently, and what would you tell the fraternity?
Yeah, no, and you're right. It's super hard to get in. It's super hard to stay.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't get easier, and I wish I could say something else, but we all know how tricky it is for people getting funding, but also there are very few female GPs out there, and hopefully over the years this changes with a lot more of us pushing. But it is the reality, I guess. I think it's mainly because women still have to prove themselves a lot more, kind of like that credibility tax that we suffer, that our male counterparts unfortunately don't, and we have to keep doing it again and again and again. And we're doing it in rooms and in systems that weren't built with us in mind, I guess. Yeah, that would go down another conversation. I guess how to stay. One of the things that I learned, probably not right at the beginning, but kind of came, there is space for everybody in this in the ecosystem, and there are lots of community events. There are lots of places that you can go, but if you've gone to those and you still don't feel like they are for you, build your own table. It's like, actually, my a good friend of mine sent me a picture the other day, a little quote saying something like, if you want to sit at the table, host the dinner. She was saying to me.
Very
and it's
cool.
that if you don't feel that you've got from the communities that you've attended or the tables that you've attended what you needed, build your own.
Absolutely.
That's how Empower Her started. It was not because I didn't feel I had a space at the table and others. Maybe my confidence wasn't there at the time. And for me, the way I built that confidence was hosting those tables, bringing those people together and those women together. I think that's pretty important. You need to find your way, but that way, because that way will help you stay. So that'd be one, I guess. Become exceptional at something, like be really good at what you do and be the one that people are like. So for me, I have my own way, other people have their own way, but kind of pick a niche and be known as someone different for that space and become known for it. And that helps with your own brand and building that brand as well. And one thing that we do now, but obviously maybe would have done more at the beginning, is kind of being able to document and show that impact of what you're making. It's super hard because sometimes impact is more than the numbers. But if you can track it in a structured way and create the processes that then just kind of automates it and does it for you, it's a much easier way to kind of be able to give that information there, and then pick where you do the work carefully. For people that are coming from the outside who want to get into VC, find those VCs and those funds that mean something to you because they align with a lot of what you do. We always say, especially at NoBa, when we're hiring, we hire for growth. So we're not particularly keen on hiring very senior hires, and that's because we want our team to feel that there's room for them to grow with the organisation. And that's come mainly from my own experience of having worked in certain industries. That's like, okay, in order for me to get to there, someone has to retire or die. And how's that kind of, so it's actually how do you create that growth for your team to feel like, actually, I could be here for 3, 5, 10 years and have a pathway to grow with the business. So find that space that you want to grow with.
Well, really cool advice, and one that struck me as sounds easy, but very hard to do is that, create a process to sort of document your wins and your work to sort of, it's we could just write that down on a piece of paper every week or put it in Excel, but it's just so hard to do, but it's so important to do.
Yeah.
Reminds me that I should do that myself. I should do that myself as well, because there's so much recency bias.
And also, it's really interesting you say that, because we have this Elevate program that we put our founders through. And the first session of the 13-week program was getting to know the founder and finding those techniques as a founder that work for you to help you grow, evolve, and run a business and do it in a wholesome way. And we had some amazing speakers come, Lonnie and Yvonne from Positive Entrepreneurship and Positive Psychology, and then Julie Elliott Brown. And one of the
Wow.
things that they said really works is first thing in the morning, write the 3 things that you're aiming towards, and then because then if you do that for a whole year, then you look back, you can
Yeah.
really see how much you grow. And actually, sometimes, especially in the female ecosystem, it's so hard. You don't feel like you're making any progress at all. But if you can look back and see those things, it
Absolutely.
makes you think, oh, actually, like I think I said a couple of weeks ago to my business partner, I feel like I've done work this year. And he was like, are you kidding me? There's a lot. And I think it's because I enjoy so much what I do. It doesn't feel like work. So when that happens, you need that anchor to be like, this is what you've done.
Yes, 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 yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I want to bring another example. Sometimes we look at so many deals, we bring them to due diligence, and then they might not happen. And then let's say it's been 3 months, and then you look back and you think, oh my God, where are the deals? But there's so much work that's already happened into bringing them, understanding those sectors, building that expertise in that sector, and bringing them to an IC table. What happens at that IC table is different, but then there's so much work that's happened. But we tend to forget, and we tend to, it's so important to sort of think about and write down,
Yeah.
your goals and what's sort of happened. Very interesting. Well, because we're talking about deals, and I wanna sort of ask you about, if you could share one of, pick any deal, any challenge that has there been a day where you thought, oh my God, I don't want to be an investor anymore. I don't like this career. What the hell is happening? Has there been a challenge that was really hard, and then you found a way out of that? I'm asking this because doing deals, like you said, it might appear sexy. Oh, you're a VC, that's sexy, but it's a lot of hard, grueling work. Be it the numbers, the legals, the people side of things. You're chasing for deals, or after that, you want to hope that your portfolio company performs well, and you want to support them. So there's so many things that go into a successful investment and a successful fund. Can you sort of, and most people might think, oh, it's just me, I'm not good at this, I don't know how to deal with this problem, but then many other VCs are going through some of the similar problems. So is there anything like that you'd like to share so others can sort of learn from your experience?
Yeah, I guess it's interesting because this actual problem happened exactly a year ago.
Okay.
It was one of the most difficult moments, mainly because it's quite emotional. Like it's like everything in life, when you've never gone through a problem, the emotion is what comes
Yeah.
up first. And it's like oh my gosh, how am I going to cope with it? A year later, I remember when it happened, a good friend of mine said to me, just stop and breathe, because this time next year, you'll look at it completely different. And it's great to be able to talk about it a year later. But
Yeah.
it's, I guess, the problem that I'm talking about is because of our hands-on approach with our companies, where we almost like live and breathe it as if it was happening to us. And a year ago, one of the portfolio companies lost one of their biggest clients that represented 90% of the company's revenue. And as you know, revenue and cash is everything when you're
Yeah.
early. And that was super, super hard. And I think it was hard, one, because of the timing, but two, because it was like, what does the business do now? Like, they have this whole team, they have all this, and they're really reliant, I guess. For NoBa, the easy bit was, because we have that club of investors, because we have those hand-on operators, we just supported the business by taking it back to the club and saying, like, this is what's happened. It was totally unexpected. This is the shock of what the company's
Yeah.
going through. Let's get through the next stages of what we're going to do. And I guess it starts with kind of being able to take those calls, of those customer calls. Is the business needed? Is it viable? Is it working? The customers that remain, do they need them? That then helps you move on to, once you've got that validation, is okay, now we'll need to reduce costs, restructure, support on that. And it's almost like you're living it with them. But I
Oh
guess,
yeah. Oh yeah.
and it's hard because it's not just, you have to go into action mode, but at the same time you have to have that, hold that space for the bit, for this is happening. And I always say the best way forward is bring your team with you, because you might ultimately have to get to really hard decisions like they did. They had to restructure the team and like kind of really reduce costs. But ultimately, if you bring them with you, the response to that decision will always be very different. And I guess the challenge that hits when these things happen is mainly because you don't have time. Like the impact, the emotional weight, the operational consequences, and the leadership challenges are all like, you have a very short space of time to react. And today the business is still there. It's starting to grow. It's had to,
Amazing.
but that only came with kind of that really quick community of investors that came in, and everyone took a part of, I'll call these clients, I'll do this, I'll validate this, I'll help do the business plan, and then ultimately we will back the business and put more capital in phase to see how it goes. But not everyone will be able to go through that. So it's kind of like, when you can't, you also have to determine what's the next steps for the business, and that's super hard, because it's I always go back to, it's the emotional strain that people are going through. Kind of the founders have built something that they really believe in and was working perfectly, and unfortunately the decision of that client, because they no longer had budget for the solution, is kind of not it doesn't work. We can't justify paying for this. So, and then as an investor, I guess the way to navigate it is, for me, was to create space for the founder and the team. Like, you have to give them those 24, 48 hours to digest that shock and figure out like kind of like how they're feeling about it. And if you can create that space, they will open up and be able to talk in a different way that's not kind of reactive, and it's more actually, how do we respond to the situation in front of us, and how do we operate with clarity. That was one. And I guess how you move.
This is hardcore. Oh my God.
How you move. You have to move super quick. And also people are like, I have my child's nativity play. You have all other stuff happening in life, and then all of a sudden it comes to a standstill. So it's, losing a major client is, I think, one of the most challenging moments for any founder, but also kind of for an investor like us that's super hands-on. But it's also a defining moment. It helps you see the leadership of the team, what team's in place, and it helps you then design, if it continues, what you want for the business. And there's loads of learnings, like huge learnings.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can't, when I just hear your story, I can sort of viscerally feel the tension and the panic.
Yeah.
And
No, honestly, it's kind of like, I'm a person that believes that everything in life, and everyone knows, gives you a lesson. And in the moment, it was like, I know what the lessons are, but like, and so it's, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. Well, you wanted to share another story?
No, I've got loads of stories, but yeah.
Okay, this one's big. I had a few questions on this. So when you heard this news, Vanessa, how did you share this with the rest of the shareholders and the other VCs on the cap table? Was it, okay, we need to have an urgent board meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So first of all, they call, the company calls them, like we sit on the board for this company. So that, and then you schedule shareholder calls, kind of communicate, just be very, you have to be just clear and kind of what's the way forward. So it has to be very much, this is a communication, this is what we need, and this is why you have to just become really structured, because it does require, it's time.
Yes.
Time important.
I asked this question specifically because when ChatGPT and generative AI imaging programs came about, one of my portfolio companies, they were in synthetic imaging, and then they were like, "Oh my God, what's happening to the market? Are we even going to be relevant if Midjourney can do this and ChatGPT can generate images?" And so it was almost like, "What the hell is happening?" And all the shareholders were there, but we didn't have a concrete step on this is what we need to do. So it was almost like information sharing, venting, shit's coming down sort of situation. And we didn't come out of the meeting with these are the concrete steps and this is what we're going to do. And I always think about, especially in a board meeting, it's very hard to say stuff as is. There has to be a little bit of being politically right, sugarcoating things, but not it's not always useful, speaking like that. So I just wanted to sort of get your input on, okay, so before you call the shareholder meeting, but you as a lead VC sitting on the board, you have a structure, you've already thought about this is what we're going to do, and then do you present that, okay, this is the action plan for the next 30-40 days. Have you found in your experience that's the best way to approach these sort of situations, or do you then
You have to be organised, you have to be disciplined. When it comes to something that's so time precious, it's kind of like day at a time almost. And you have to, someone has to take the reins of this is, because otherwise everyone is going to contribute and nothing. So it has to be very structured and very rational, and you have to run the process. And I guess it's taking ownership of someone being like you say, there's a lot of you have to be politically correct on that, but ultimately the goal is the same for everyone. We want this business to survive, and we want to make sure that we do everything in our power to have the business maintain. And so kind of everyone needs to always think what's the best thing for the business and how we operate in the right way.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much. What's one thing in venture that frustrates you, but you rarely say out loud?
I think it's the collaboration piece. Everyone said they collaborate, but sometimes there are people that don't collaborate.
Yeah. So true. So true. Yeah. The next question is, what kind of investor do you not want to become?
One that just follows like the numbers and the metrics.
Very
It's just
cool.
looking at the data. I always want to have that kind of gut feeling emotional. The data has to back it up, but yeah.
Yeah. The third one and the last one, what does a backable founder mean to you?
Someone who really, really, really understands what they're building, because they've kind of have lived experience either directly or indirectly through other people, and they know exactly why they're building it, not just like the attractiveness of building something shiny. It's kind of it is going to make a difference for someone like them who have gone through that.
Well, thank you so much. That brings us to the end of this podcast episode. Thank you so much, Vanessa. I think I learned a lot from your experience today. And thank you again for being very candid and bringing those experiences to the platform. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.